Good afternoon and welcome to the 1 o'clock session here for the Oregon Conference Camp Meeting 2021. We are so happy that you are here with us, whether you're in Oregon or somewhere around the world joining us. We are very privileged that you are here, and we're very happy that you are here. Our presenter this afternoon is going to be Andy Villanueva. He's going to be speaking on Evangelism pre-work best practices. The most effective reaping series happens when there is an effective pre-work ahead of time. Reaping series needs pre-work in order to fully function. And for a MaxHarvest to happen, to be realized, intentional pre-work is needed. The Outreach Ministries team here at the Oregon Conference has identified several best practices when it comes to evangelism pre-work and success. And Andy Villanueva will be sharing those practices with us. Andy Villanueva is the current Oregon Conference Outreach Ministries Associate Director and the Field Director for the Adventist Community Services here in Oregon, and we're very privileged to have him share with us. We have a chat available if you would like to write down questions while he is sharing with us, and we will be able to ask those questions at a question response time afterwards. So, as we get ready for Andy to present, let us pray. Father in heaven, thank you so much that we can watch and learn what it means to do pre-work in order to be prepared for a reaping series, and we ask for your blessing and guidance as we learn more. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hello, Camp Meeting. My name is Andy Villanueva, Associate Director of Outreach. You know, when I think about the preparation phase of evangelism, I can feel overwhelmed, not knowing where to start like many of you. The Outreach Ministries team has identified best practices for churches to engage with as they begin the countdown to their upcoming series. This quote from Desire of Ages has brought encouragement to many at the cusp of an evangelistic journey. It says, "The work of many may appear to be restricted by circumstances, but wherever it is, if performed with faith and diligence, it will be felt to the uttermost parts of the earth. God often uses the simplest means to accomplish the greatest results." As I share some of these pre-work best practices, remember that God will use the simple means to accomplish God-sized results. This presentation is also in the form of a booklet which you can find in our website at maxharvestchurch.com/pre-work. This information can serve as a menu with multiple options for a church to consider as they focus on reaching others for Jesus. The Outreach Ministries team has partnered with more than 20 experienced guest evangelists as well as local pastor evangelists in the Oregon Conference. We encourage you to plan ahead as evangelists are often scheduled up to 3 years in advance. Robert Zama is a full-time evangelist with the Oregon Conference, holding 6 reaping series per year. He has ministered internationally and speaks 4 languages. His passion is to see people come to know Jesus and for the local church to flourish and grow. Another pre-work practice is spiritual renewal. Distractions and busyness can quickly push aside the most important things in our lives. However, as individual members of the church focus on prayer and the study of God's Word, their spiritual temperature will increase. As a result, the church will experience revival and a greater harvest. In the work of evangelism, we are engaged in a significant spiritual battle that requires spiritual weapons. The battle is especially intense when we invite people to follow Jesus. The MaxHarvest Prayer Challenge is a tangible tool to help you pray specifically for 7 individuals whom you want to see come to Jesus. In addition to prayer, practical ideas are shared that explain ways you can further engage with the people of whom you are praying. The prayer card includes such activities as claiming a specific Bible promise, sending an email or text message to someone that you know, inviting them home for a meal, taking them out for lunch, ask them for prayer requests, invite them to an event. Praying, visiting, and registering friends to a series is a proven method to bringing souls to Christ. Another pre-work best practice is understanding your community. Precision impact requires an understanding of the trends and needs of your surrounding community. The Oregon Conference has partnered with Percept to provide a free 27-page detailed demographic report for any church within our territory. Intentional alignment of a local church's resources to the community's needs dramatically increases reaping effectiveness. Ministry Match, which is part of Percept, helps a church discover relevant needs for the surrounding community. Focusing your ministries on a particular population segment can further enhance effectiveness. Our team conducted 2 Percept surveys of a local church's community. Church A had an existing ministry that had an emphasis on childcare. Since they began that ministry, they have had many kids in their program, and the survey agreed that the most significant need in that community was childcare. Church B had a ministry running for a couple of years, but with very few engagements from the community. When the survey was conducted, we discovered that the community was interested in other services that the church was not offering. If you are interested, connect with someone from our department and visit perceptgroup.com. Another method is Community Impact Ministries. We are passionate about equipping local churches with community impact ministries, such as Adventist Community Services, Health Outreach, and Acts of Kindness. Practical intensive training is provided by leading experts in these areas at the Oregon Conference camp meeting every year. Church in the Valley in Langley, British Columbia is a Seventh-day Adventist church that models community impact ministries, including extreme home repair, single moms oil change, breakfast club, car for moms, community kitchen, and more. This September, the North Pacific Union Conference will be hosting an urban ministries convention called Crosswalk in the City. Its purpose is to spotlight innovative, successful, and sustainable ministries operated by Adventist churches in their urban context. It will also highlight principle and practice of community engagements that address the needs of people and communities in the world today. Some of the plenary speakers include Sung Kwan, former ACS Director of the North American Division, Roger Hernandez, Ministerial Director for the Southern Union, Shirley Allen, Children's Ministry Director of the Oregon Conference, and many others. Scan the QR code and visit the website on your screen for more information. Together as One and the 414 window. Together as One is a movement within the Oregon Conference to build a collaborative ministry between churches and schools to produce greater synergy for ministry and evangelism. The 414 window emphasizes the priority of reaching children between the ages of 4 through 14 when 63% of decisions for Jesus are made. Churches that are intent on being effective evangelistically are encouraged to focus resources on the 414 window. Opportunities include the following: Adventist education, summer camp sponsorships, vacation Bible school, adventurers, pathfinders, children's church, and many more. Another pre-work best practice is looking at church health. Healthy churches attract and retain new people. Closing the back door is one of the biggest concerns regarding proclamation evangelism. Providing a healthy place for people to grow spiritually and relationally is the best way to address this concern. Natural Church Development, NCD, is a survey that analyzes church health based on 8 quality characteristics. Focusing on areas that need improvement will raise the overall quality of the church, directly impacting church growth. Therefore, it is recommended to repeat the survey every 12 through 18 months. Jesus said in John chapter 10, verse 10, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." MaxLife Inventory assesses 8 domains of well-being, which include health, vocation, family, intellectual, financial, emotional, relational, and spiritual. Living life with intentionality brings focus if we are to live life to the max. then pursuing excellence in each of these 8 areas is critical. A healthy church is composed of healthy members, of men and women who have a personal experience in true godliness. And this is found in mind, character, and personality. Now, what's neat about the MaxLife Inventory is that it gives you an overall score of exactly those 8 areas in your life. It also includes a grading rubric to analyze exactly where you stand in those 8 areas. Now, there are 3 key benefits for local churches. Number 1, members live more intentionally and improve their quality of life. Number 2, composite result for entire church based on a coupon access code. Customized sermons, training based on the needs of your church. And number 3, community result based on MaxLife sharing cards for neighbors, coworkers. Identify areas of felt needs to customize outreach events. For more information and to take the survey, visit MaxLifeInventory.com. Another pre-work best practice are MaxLife intensive events. Subject matter experts in each of the 8 domains surveyed by MaxLife have partnered with the Outreach Ministries team to provide MaxLife community-focused events. Sharing cards available for members to give to coworkers or neighbors with a coupon code to take the MaxLife survey. Key areas of need in the immediate community can be identified for the strategic selection of a domain that will be most relevant, whether it's health, vocation, family, intellectual, financial, emotional, relational, and spiritual. It is recommended that the MaxLife events be held 2 to 6 weeks in advance of the opening night of the Evangelistic Reaping series. We love to celebrate the soul winner. Engaging as many members as possible and giving Bible studies is a guaranteed way to generate interest leading up to a Reaping series. Bible study leads can be generated through bulk mailing or literature display stands. It is written, and Voice of Prophecy has developed resources for local churches to set up their own Bible school. We will help you set up the school as well as train members in best practices in giving Bible studies. We recommend providing a free Andrews Study Bible to any member who completes a 4-hour training by our team, along with conducting at least one Bible study leading up to this series. Another best practice is Disciples Tracking System. The Outreach Ministries team has partnered with the Disciples web platform, which enables churches to excel in building meaningful relationships with the most intentional way possible. The Disciples Tracking System includes features such as lead generation, Bible study visits, event attendance, baptismal candidates, and one of my favorites, mapping. This tool assists local churches as they endeavor to involve every member in actively caring for others. Our team is equipped to support your church in setting up this fantastic tool. A local church member should be identified to lead this ministry. There is a training video that is available to you at the maxharvestchurch.com/disciples website. Another best practicing tool is something called Youth Rush. This unique seek sowing ministry takes place every summer. Youth Rush is a youth-led literature evangelism program that results in many excellent contacts in the community. Currently, Oregon Youth Rush is focused in Portland, Vancouver, Salem, and Eugene. Reaping meetings that take place in these regions during September can benefit from the leads generated. 2 summers ago, one of our students was knocking on doors in an apartment building when they met a young woman. Immediately, the woman found out that the student was Seventh-day Adventist. This woman grew up Adventist but had not gone to church in many years. The student invited her to church the following Sabbath, and she was able to join and have fellowship meal. The student connected this young woman to the local pastor and began consistently attending the church. Additionally, Youth Rush plans to hold a 2-week reaping series in one location each summer. Another best practice is literature evangelism or literature ministries. Pacific Press has identified highly effective pieces of Adventist literature based on public interest and has also provided discount pricing on these items. Professional literature display stands can be purchased and stocked with these items. Stands should be placed in a prominent public place. Literature includes an invitation for Bible studies. GLOW is an acronym, which is giving light to our world. It is a ministry whose aim is to activate believers across the globe in spreading the gospel through small, pocket-sized tracts on such subjects as salvation, health, prayer, prophecy, and the reliability of the Bible. Everybody can glow, young and old. A woman in Washington adopted a local laundromat as an outreach center and started stocking it with glow tracts on a regular basis. She noticed that the tracts would disappear quickly though. Thinking that perhaps someone was throwing them away, she kept an eye open for the potential culprits. One day she noticed that the local mailman took a whole stack of the tracts and put them in a small pouch. As he was walking out, she asked him what he was doing, and he replied that he enjoyed the tracts and gave them out to people as he delivered mail. Utilizing GLOW's ministry's material is part of the planning phase of evangelism and is a practical way to engage members. Every tract distributed is a seed planted. For more information, visit glownorthwest.org. Another best practice are life-changing divine appointments. A divine appointment is the spirit-guided intersection of people's lives for God's purpose. What would happen if you prayed every morning that God would give you a divine appointment? What if every church member prayed this intentionally? The 30-day Divine Appointment Challenge takes place 1 month before the Reaping Series. It is launched by a sermon, which is followed by an afternoon seminar entitled Spiritual Conversations with Secular People. Every member is provided with a book that includes daily equipping, a coaching question, real-life stories of divine appointments, and a space to journal what happens. So get ready for an adventure with God. Order your copy online at MaxHarvestChurch.com. Another best practice for pre-work is radical hospitality. Hospitality can be defined as opening your heart and home as a demonstration of the love of God. One of the most effective invitations that almost always gets a yes response is an invitation to your home for a meal. In fact, it becomes a key to unlock your neighbor's heart. Church members are encouraged to invite a coworker or a neighbor home for a meal before handing them an invitation to the Reaping Series. In-home hospitality, along with increased fellowship opportunities in the local church, are keys to a successful Reaping Series. We encourage you to offer a delicious fellowship meal every week at your church. If you want to take things to the next level, try adding breakfast as well. We've looked so far at 5 initiatives for total member involvement: GLOW, the MaxHarvest Prayer Challenge, the 30-Day Divine Appointment Challenge, Radical Hospitality, and the MaxLife Inventory. We feel blessed to have a cutting-edge Adventist marketing company located right in the Oregon Conference territory. This team knows what works, and we encourage you to give them the latitude to make recommendations and adjustments to your advertising for maximum impact. A significant part of gaining an audience is connected to effectiveness in this area. Brochures, banners, graphics, and social media advertising combine to provide a comprehensive approach to getting the word out. Visit evangelismmarketing.com for further information. As you consider these pre-work best practices, I would like to encourage you by sharing one of my favorite quotes found in Ministry of Healing. Christ's method alone will give true success in reaching the people. The Savior mingled with men as one who desired their good. He showed his sympathy for them, ministered to their needs, and won their confidence. Then he bade them, "Follow me." There is a need of coming close to the people by personal effort. I like this quote so much. I learned a couple things. First, mingle with men as if to desire their good. Also, show sympathy for them. Minister to their needs, which in turn wins their confidence and friendship and trust. And lastly, give them the invitation to follow. I hope that this presentation was a blessing to you, and I look forward to being in touch soon. God bless.
And welcome back. What an amazing presentation by Andy. And we're so grateful that Andy is here live in the studio with us. Yes, that was pre-recorded, but you are here.
I'm here in the flesh.
And we're here to ask some questions. And if you have some questions, even as we're talking, you're more than welcome to share those questions and type those into the chat as well. But I love that Ministry of Healing quote. That's just one of my favorite quotes because to me, when I read that quote, it really resonates with me, the importance of relationship building.
Yes, it is.
You see the way Jesus moved through the Gospels. He's constantly building relationships. So it sounds like a lot of pre-work stuff is dealing with relationship building. So tell us more about the importance of relationship building with our surrounding communities.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's exactly what you said as well. And that's kind of the point of why I put that quote there is that, I kind of grew up always thinking like, pre-work was a flyer. Here you go. We'll see you at this date, But it really is that relationship building. And there's a lot of good examples that we found. And one is even community service, exactly providing some type of service, maybe food bank ministry, disaster response, which we were actually pretty involved with. Yes, last year, right? But it felt like yesterday. Yeah. but just seeing how we were able to build those relationships with people in our community, and they didn't even know that, hey, what is this center about? What is Oregon headquarters about? And so like community service is one way, and also just being able to really understand your community through the percept surveys. And really just seeing what their needs are as well. So once you figure those things are out, then you're able to really define, how am I going to reach my community? What are their needs? And how, what can I, as a church, be there to support them?
Right. So your role as the field director for Adventist Community Services here in Oregon has really set you up in seeing the importance of relationship building. Yeah. And we, as a conference, definitely saw that last year during the wildfires that displaced so many people.
You had an amazing story,
I had several amazing stories.
Yeah. But there was one that stood out to me about an older gentleman actually here in the community, right?
Right. So he was walking around, and I stopped to chat with him, and he just said, "Thank you." We had this poor attitude about Adventist because every year at camp meeting they would park, and my parents would be so frustrated because they'd be parking in front of our driveway. But he said, "My mind was changed because you opened up your campus and allowed us to come in when we were evacuating at one of our worst spots in our lives." So just building those relationships was really good.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you build relationships, you begin to understand your local community a little better. I had a professor at seminary that said, exegete your community, meaning really get to know your community. Sometimes I think we as churches think we know what our community wants or needs, but maybe our communities don't actually believe that the same thing we do when it comes to the community needs. So how can we best really get to know what our community needs so we can best understand our communities? Yeah,
no, that's a great question. I definitely want to encourage anyone that's watching, the member or church leader or pastor, to come chat with us at the Oregon Conference Outreach Department. And I'm really excited about this tool with percept surveys because it allows you to, you just kind of put in the information of the zip code of your church or your communities, and it allows you to see exactly what the community needs. Not what we think it needs, but what exactly it needs. And so through a survey like that, you're able to see, if they're wanting to focus on like maybe family events or health or, whatever else, anything like even childcare, things like that. I think that's a really great place to start. Something else that I've encouraged people to do is like even a SWOT analysis, look at, sit down with some church leaders, and look at your internal strengths, your internal weaknesses, and then focus on, okay, what are some external opportunities and threats? And when you start at least writing those things down, you're able to at least kind of develop then a game plan of, okay, how can we start being able to reach our community, with maybe we see our need, the biggest need in our community is probably childcare, as an example. Okay, well, let's do our SWOT analysis and see exactly what we can do to launch that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think one of the most effective ways that I have found to actually understand my community is to be out in the community. As a pastor, I have a little more leeway in my scheduling, but I try to make it a point to be in places where people are and can converse with them and talk with them, ask them, what needs do you have?
Yeah.
Or what are some things that you need? And actually by doing that, in the past, in one of my previous churches, I was able to befriend a city councilman. And then all of a sudden I was able to better understand what the needs of the community were, because this councilman was in council every month and sees those needs as people come in and say and talk about the needs that.
Yeah.
So
and that's a great principle, because that's what we follow also with disaster response. With a lot of our leaders in the Oregon Conference, we almost say, hey, this is the way to be successful in disaster response, is connect with your local officials, connect with your fire department, connect with your police department, city council, like your example, so that you can work together and see exactly, okay, what can we do to serve the community? And so I think that's a great example. So plug yourself in to the local coffee shop. Plug yourself into the city farmers market, and see exactly, okay, how can we better serve people in our community? Let's not just be a church here that's just here on Saturdays and Wednesdays, but how can we serve those that are around us, our neighbors?
Right. And most towns have a chamber of commerce where you can then engage with other businesses who also have a pulse on the community. And so this ties into understanding the needs and then building those relationships. And then all of a sudden you have people to talk with, and you have inroads into the community in order to better your pre-work and getting ready for that reaping series.
Exactly.
Switching gears a little bit, we've been doing this together as one thing, and that was mentioned in your presentation as something that is building relationships between churches and schools. Where have you seen schools and churches working well together, and in what ways has it been effective?
Yeah, so the Together as One is a great opportunity, obviously, for pastors and teachers to get together, to have that synergy together, and be able to plug in pastors like yourself into the school. I believe that there's a good number of students that are actually in the academies that are not Adventists, right? A lot of them are from other faith-based, but it's a great opportunity to plug in to a mentorship role, as a pastor, as kind of a chaplain. Being able to connect with them and also their families, being able to make those connections. Again, we're talking about building relationships. And so that's one way, but something that we're really recommending is, even if for your local church, if you have an evangelist coming in sometime in 2 months down the road, plan to have even like a campus evangelistic series. How cool would that be for before the evangelist comes in, to have an evangelistic, a week of prayer at your local academy, and being able to mentor, but also to preach the gospel to these young people. And so being able to capture decisions, at a young age. My first time I made a decision, I was also in my late teens, and so I think it's really important to not let, those young people just go without being able to be intentional with them, so mentoring with the young people, as well as being able to have like a week of prayer. I think that's really key, and a big part of what I see what Together as One could do.
One of the churches that I pastor is actually, we meet in one of our Adventist schools, that we meet there weekly. And so it's actually been fun to engage and be involved, and just be there and present. And we have seen some amazing opportunities to interact and make inroads with families.
Yep.
One of the things that we have found as the school has involved me and the other pastors in the area in interviews with students and families is that we have these families that are coming in that have no religious background or experience, but they're saying, we want our kids to have, our children to have a choice and to be exposed to this.
Yeah.
And so it's an amazing opportunity. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I was just going to share a quick story. I know that about a year ago, there was a family that accidentally, they had a tragic experience by losing their son, and so they had no connection with any other faith-based organization except the school that their son was attending. And so they just reached out to the church, and said, hey, we're not members, but we would love to at least have our funeral service here. And so they have that connection at least with the families, but there's so many other ways to be able to connect with those families, as you mentioned.
Right. So it's all back to this relationship building.
Exactly.
Pre-work is so much relationship building.
Yeah.
Outward, but also I think inward. You mentioned natural church development, NCD, this assessment that happens that a church can participate in, has those 8 qualities that you get ranked on. And if a church member is watching this and they're curious about NCD, and they want their church to kind of engage with it, or they want to learn more information, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah. So Tom Evans was, our director. He was the one that really came into our department and started spearheading this. And it's been really great for me, at least, to be able to experience it working with him and going to several churches and being able to take part of the survey. And just kind of helping them to show even the survey results and creating a game plan. So if a church member is interested in doing something like this, or they have more questions, definitely, again, come and reach out to myself, Tim Taylor, Rob Zama, and we'll be happy to be able to, answer some of those questions or bring that NCD survey to the church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you seen good results come from the NCD survey, and what changes or improvements or stories do you have from that?
I'll be honest, I haven't, because right when Tom came in, I mean, we were hit with a pandemic, and so we kind of started. I was at that phase, my personal experience working with the church, where we just started showing the results of the survey, and then everything kind of just shut down at that point.
Yeah.
But the stories that I've heard from Tom and from everybody else who's worked with NCD, like, I'm just excited for me to be able to experience it with the local church, to be able to share those results. And so that's why I'm encouraging people, like, hey, if this is something that you would love to do, I'd love to journey with you and as well on that, because I know from hearing different stories of church plants and even churches that have been around for many years, that after the NCD, it's like a mirror. In the morning you wake up and it's not the best sight, right? But you need to have that self-awareness so that you can at least, I guess this might be a bad illustration, but just like more presentable, right? More presentable for what you're trying to accomplish in the community. So yeah, I'm excited to be part of that. And I really do believe that there's a lot of great potential in doing the NCD survey.
I've heard it described as a snapshot of your current health as a church, and understanding what you talked about SWOT analysis earlier, your strengths and your weaknesses. The NCD is just another tool to help you understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, and areas of improvement that you can make to better facilitate relationship building with each other and with the community at large.
And the reality is, like, even personally, like, I mean, looking at yourself and starting to see, like, maybe I should start looking at like areas where I'm like not the strongest. It's not something that we jump to right away, but it's important for our personal growth, but as a church also, growth. Right.
Yeah. So another element of pre-work that you mentioned was giving of Bible studies, and you mentioned Discover and what was the other one? It Is Written.
Yep.
It Is Written. So you mentioned Discover and It Is Written Bible studies. How do you encourage the church member who looks at something like that and says, I don't have all the answers, so I can't do it? How would you encourage someone who is feeling that?
Yeah, and that's normal. I think that's kind of like the feeling that we get from a lot of church members when we go around and encourage them to maybe do a mailer and or online advertising for Bible studies, which I'm going to do a quick plug, because next year for 2022, we're going to do It Is Written Oregon Conference Evangelistic Series. So
February,
we're trying to,
right?
Yeah, February. And so we're going to be doing a lot of advertising. So we are going to have a lot more members now with that same response. Right. So we want to at least share with you the resource, our team, with Tim Taylor, Rob, and myself, that we are able to go to your church or go with the group that want to start giving Bible studies and train you and exactly on how to give Bible studies. We think sometimes Bible studies is like, working on a thesis or a doctorate. It's not. It's really building that relationship. You're sitting with them and just sharing them precious truths from the Bible, but also just being there as a friend. Again, looking at the different best practices of enjoying a meal together, enjoying a hobby together, things like that. That's really, I think a big part of having Bible study, is building relationships. So yeah, just to answer your question, it's we provide training and just kind of like the know-how to do that as well.
One of the things that has helped me when I've described giving Bible studies to people is that people have this idea, a lot of church members have this idea that I'm to be the master, giving the knowledge to the person who's not the master. And that can be scary to be in that position, when you put yourself in that position that you have to know all the answers. And I think if we can do a mental shift of saying, I'm just creating a relationship with someone, and we're journeying together. And I don't have to know the answers, because they don't have to know all the answers. I don't have to know all the answers. But I know who may have some of the answers. I can contact my pastor. I can contact Andy in the conference office. Now you're going to get a lot of calls.
I know. Right?
I can contact people when something comes up, and I'm okay saying, I don't know the answer to that right now. But let's dive in, or let me make a few calls or emails and see what I can discover.
Exactly. You don't have to have an answer at that moment. You could say, that's a good answer. I don't have it right now, but let's talk about it next week or something like that. But I really wanted to focus again on that relationship part. Yeah. I've had, 2 years of Bible work experience where I was at a local church, and so I would do actual Bible studies and then training. But what I found to be really important, again, is just that relationship. I remember I was studying with this lady. She stopped studying the Bible with me. She just stopped answering her door. And then one time we had this awkward encounter at the gas station, where I say, hey, how are you? And I think she kind of like embarrassingly just said, oh, hey, and I said, hey, I'll see you on Tuesday. I just assumed it, right? Right. But something shifted in my mind. I was like, you know what? Maybe she doesn't need Bible studies. Maybe that tree that's on the way, kind of on the pavement on the way to her door, that's literally it's an eyesore. Maybe that needs to be removed. Maybe I could help her out with the yard work. After that, she started studying the Bible. Maybe it was building trust, or maybe again building that relationship. But at the end, through that journey, and then she started coming to church. She decided to get baptized. Wow. But again, it's you don't need to have all the answers. You could always kind of say, hey, like you said, I know someone that does, or we could touch on that subject next time. But also build those relationships with those people, because that's what they also desire, just like us, right? God made us relational, so they want that relationship.
Right. It just comes back to the Ministry of Healing quote at the end of your presentation that we talked about at the beginning of this discussion, of just mingling and sharing and creating relationships and friendships with people. Exactly. Because, one of the most effective ways that I have found in regards to pre-work is just building those relationships, because once you have spent time with people and built relationships with people, inviting them to something is so much easier, because you're inviting a friend and not a complete stranger. Exactly. It's not as awkward. It's who am I sitting next to at church, right? You actually know the person. Right. Yeah. It's actually, hey, this is my friend that we've been, hanging out, and we do all this together. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Good. So you also mentioned glow tracks. I know that I have been involved in a church where I've had some members that have really amazing glow track stories. You mentioned a quick glow track story in your presentation, but I was wondering, do you have any more stories about glow tracks? Because it seems so easy to just carry them around, but sometimes we may be fearful about pulling them out. Or could you share some more stories and maybe some practical tips on how to just have them at the ready when you sense the Spirit moving? Yeah, sure. I'm personally a very introvert guy. I get very nervous when there's a live camera on my face. You might not be like now, right? But I'm very introvert. So I think there's different ways for every type of personality to glow. I really believe that anybody can glow, young, old, anybody can do it. So one way that you can do it even is at the gas station. I always say, if you're obviously not in Oregon, because, you don't pump your own gas. Exactly. But hey, if you feel a little bold, you could just hand the glow track to the person that's, they're filling you up. But, what you can do is just put a glow track there in that little slot where your debit or credit card go,
And so the next person that comes by, they could just get that glow track immediately and put it in their pocket, or you could just put it there in the, where you actually, the lever to the pump level lever. So you could just put it there as well. And so we had this church member, actually Bill, who was, doing that. And one day he actually sees a car roll in. And this lady gets off very, very young, and she gets the glow track as she's putting in her debit credit card. And Bill's a very introvert guy, very shy, and so he didn't expect the following, that she was actually gonna open the glow track and all of a sudden look up at him and have like this awkward stare, and then look back at the glow track and look back at him and say, and she starts walking to him and says, "Did you put this glow track?" And he's like, "Yeah, I did." Now Bill gets a little bit more bold. He actually says, I actually go to a church just down the road. Would you like to come? And this is, after a good conversation. Right. But this lady decides to go to church. And then she actually ends up, deciding to get baptized, and also starts bringing her son with her as well, just from that glow track. Wow. Another one really quick for those that are a little bit more bolder than Bill. If you're going through a drive-through window, like fast food, which I don't think Adventist we don't know what that term is, right? What's fast food? Anyways, a new word, Taco Bell as well. But you find yourself at a drive-through window, as you're getting your food, you could also give a glow track, just something quick, and just say, "Thank you so much. Here's a gift for you." And that's it. Mm-hmm. The reality also is that you're going to get rejected, right. And I think it's kind of, you just need to, I always tell people, you just need to treat those rejections like water on a duck's back. Just let it slide off. Just, it's going to happen, but just know that even if the track falls on the ground, someone could still pick it up, know. It's a seed that's planted, and I like this quote as well that says, they're leaves of autumn. They're going to fall. They're going to be scattered. Some people are going to ground. Some of them are going to end up on the ground. Right. But just pray and allow the Holy Spirit to work, through that glow track as it touches, as someone reads it, it touches their heart. And the cool thing is every glow track at the back has a Bible study, what is it? If someone wants to sign up for Bible studies.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So Dr. Evans yesterday in the presentation mentioned divine appointments, and you also briefly mentioned the book Divine Appointments as well in your presentation. So I'm curious, how would that best fit within a church context? Maybe not necessarily only individually, but maybe corporately. How would you see this idea of divine appointments fitting into the life of a church?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it could take place even in a small group. Being able to go through this book, like the 30-day Divine Appointment book, just go through it together, and go through the journey individually, day by day by day, and then come together and see exactly how did God work through that. Right. Because I always believe if you pray for divine appointments, God is going to answer. Right. And you just got to be ready for that. It's just be careful what you pray for. Right. If you're going to pray for God, give me the ability to speak to someone, and if you're shy, God's going to answer it,
Right. Yeah.
And so being as you're meeting with a group, and you're taking a journey together through the devotional and reading stories, and also kind of there's a page there as well where you could kind of write down practically, what you took out of that, or even maybe write down a personal divine appointment that you had. I think you're able to, the spiritual level of that group is going to grow. And that's going to encourage others that maybe are not part of that group to start praying for divine appointments.
Nice.
And that's something that I also encourage church members with literature. Right. Just saying, if you're just going to go pass out glow tracks, that's fine. But when you start praying specifically for divine appointment, there's so many church members that have come up to me if I've gone a couple times, God, I have this divine appointment I got to share with you. And again, it's because they are praying specifically for something like that to happen. And so it's great when you're kind of, going through that, book by yourself, but I think it has greater potential for church health when you're doing something like that together.
I think another important thing would be to pray that God would give you eyes to see those appointments.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy for us to get so focused, pray for, hey, I want God, I want a divine appointment today, but then get so busy with our day that it's very easy to miss those appointments.
Or you're overwhelmed by your fear of maybe talking to someone or just seeing an opportunity of just of a divine appointment. So.
Well, thank you for being here, Andy. Really appreciate your presentation. Really appreciate the topic of evangelism pre-work. As a pastor, I think it's one of the most important things, especially when it comes to a reaping series, because it's the relationships that you build ahead of time that really blossom into that reaping series. I mean, when you look at the story of the sower and the cycle of how wheat and grain grows, it really just makes sense to have that pre-work and to be intentionally focused on how can we engage, create relationships, and then move forward. So thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us as well. We're very privileged that you have been with us. We've just talked about evangelism pre-work. Just want to let you know that tonight, starting at 5 o'clock, if you are in the mood for Pronto Pups, they will be here. The Pathfinders from the conference are going to be doing a fundraiser, and of course, Pronto Pups are there. They will also be here tomorrow from 12 to 7 as well. 5 to 7 tonight, 12 to 7 tomorrow, and 12 to 7 on Friday. So, thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of the afternoon. I know there's more great stuff coming on, and wherever you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or the Socio app. God bless.